I was in a relationship with Ryan for 5 years, from campus to society. I loved him so deeply that I couldn't help myself, but on the day of our engagement, he ran off with his childhood sweetheart. Every time, when it came to choosing between me and her, he always unhesitatingly chose Raina. This time, I said we were breaking up on the spot. I blocked all his contact information. Ryan panicked and knelt downstairs for an entire night. I had been in a relationship with Ryan for 5 years, and Raina had been stirring things up between us for 5 years. The day of the engagement was my last chance for Ryan. As expected, Raina appeared with a dagger, and she said fiercely, "Ryan, I won't allow you to marry Claire." After saying that, she cut herself. Blood immediately gushed out, and she ran out while saying, "If you marry her, I'll die for you." Ryan hesitated, wanting to chase after her. "Don't go. If you walk out that door today, we will break up." Ryan ignored my pleading gaze, gently prying my hands apart, and said, "Be good, wait for me to come back. I will definitely give you the most luxurious wedding." My best friend pointed at Ryan's back and cursed loudly, "Ryan." Watching him disappear at the door, I held back my sadness, calmly apologized to everyone, and announced, "From now on, Ryan and I have nothing to do with each other." A whirlwind of dizziness, I collapsed on the stage. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital with white walls, the pungent smell of disinfectant filling my nostrils. "Claire, you're awake? Are you hungry?" I nodded. My stomach was empty, and I was indeed a bit hungry. My best friend hurried off to buy me some food. After my friend left, I slowly sat up, wanting to go to the bathroom. On my way back, I passed by a half-open patient room and inadvertently caught a glimpse of Raina. The busy man in her room was none other than Ryan. He was peeling an apple for Raina when she caught sight of me, deliberately wrapping her arms around Ryan's neck and loudly saying, "Ryan, I want you to be good to me for the rest of my life." All right, I'll listen to you." Ryan handed Raina a piece of apple, saying, "Open your mouth, eat the apple." The apple Ryan fed her was indeed sweet, and Raina smiled sweetly. Ryan affectionately brushed her nose, and when he was unaware of her angle, she took the opportunity to raise an eyebrow at me, a smug smile curling at the corners of her mouth. I stumbled back a step, my chest feeling as if it had been tightly gripped. As I turned and hurried away, tears had already blurred my vision. The window at the end of the corridor let in blinding sunlight, and as I raised my hand to wipe my tears, they only flowed more. My best friend is back and noticed my red eyes. "Claire, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Or is something hurting?" I shook my head, crying even harder, while my friend hurriedly handed me tissues to wipe my tears. "Autumn, am I too weak?" My friend's eyes also turned red as she hugged me tightly. Her embrace was warm. "It's okay to cry if you want to," she gently patted my back. "We're just a little sick." "Who is sick?" My best friend let go of me and took out a piece of paper from her bag. "The doctor just came to see you," she pointed at the chart, "and these test results show that you have depression, and it's quite severe." I stared blankly at the diagnosis report. The dense curves on it were incomprehensible to me, but the words "severe depression" were particularly glaring. "It's all that bastard Ryan's fault." My best friend stomped her feet in anger, startling the old lady in the next bed. "But don't worry," she held my hand, "I know the best psychologist, and we will definitely be able to cure it." Looking back on everything, it seems there are clues to follow. Ryan's passenger seat was Raina's. "Claire, let Raina sit in the passenger seat, she gets car sick." "It's only comfortable sitting in the passenger seat anyway, you must be tired of sitting there." We rented the master bedroom, which is Raina's. Raina has a light sleep, and the guest room is too noisy because it faces the road. Anyway, it's just for one night, so we'll sleep in the guest room. Raina is always part of our weekend travel plans. I don't feel at ease leaving her home alone. For our trip, we booked a family room at the hotel. Raina is afraid of the dark, and she gets scared sleeping alone. When she was little, I would always stay with her when her brother wasn't home. Ryan said that Raina's relatives are all abroad, and he promised Raina's brother that he would take good care of her. You know me, I value my promises above all. Because I love Ryan, I keep giving in, suppressing myself time and again. Clearly, my parents are also abroad, and he promised to take good care of me. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Ryan. Baby, I can't be with you tonight. Raina is emotionally unstable, and I'm afraid she might do something drastic. Baby, today it's my fault. I promised you I would make it up to you with a dream wedding. A husband keeps his word. Baby, get some rest early, don't think too much. I turned off the screen, didn't reply to the messages. My fingers couldn't stop trembling. He always does this. After being discharged in the evening, my best friend was worried about me, so I stayed at her place. I stayed at my best friend's house for 2 days, and when Ryan found out, he just said, "It's fine for you to stay at Autumn's house. When Raina feels better, I'll take you back." In the afternoon, my best friend left a sticky note, reminding me to remember to see a psychologist. Perhaps afraid that I would forget, there was also an identical message in our WeChat chat box. So, for the sake of my best friend's efforts, and of course for my own sake to get better sooner, I arrived at the psychologist's office. The moment I saw the psychologist, I finally understood the ambiguous smile on my best friend's face back at the hospital. "Claire, long time no see." I couldn't help but blush and replied blankly, "Long time no see." His bright smile seemed to return to 13 years ago, and I said to my best friend, "Your brother is so handsome, I really want to be his girlfriend." A warm voice suddenly came from behind, "Sure, I'll wait for you to grow up, it's Julian. You've become more beautiful as you grew up." Julian was as gentle as ever. I shyly sat down. Julian is very professional and gentle, patiently opening my heart. The grievances of these years poured out like water released from a valve. As I spoke, I suddenly burst into tears, and while crying, I fainted from lack of oxygen. When I woke up again, Julian was waving a lollipop in front of me, saying I performed very well today and deserved a reward. I saw a large wet patch on his shirt, and suddenly remembered how heartbroken I was just now. When Julian came over to comfort me, I unexpectedly hugged him tightly and wouldn't let go. "Well, I'll take your clothes back to wash. It's better to bring them over next time." What a coincidence, I ran into Ryan and Raina right at the hospital entrance, with Raina practically hanging off him. When Ryan saw me, he clearly stiffened for a moment and quickly removed his hand from Raina's waist. "Claire? What are you doing at the hospital?" Ryan's expression was a bit awkward. Raina immediately shot me a glare, then quickly put on a fake concerned expression. "Claire, are you feeling unwell? It seems as if none of those things happened yesterday. What does it have to do with you?" I clenched the appointment slip in my hand. Ryan frowned. "What kind of attitude is that? I'm your boyfriend, isn't it natural for me to care about you? It wasn't the case yesterday." I sneered, "And even if it were, what are you doing now?" Ryan's face suddenly turned red. "Didn't I say I would compensate you with a more luxurious wedding?" "Claire, I'm sorry," Raina suddenly interjected, her voice sweet to the point of being cloying. "It's all my fault, I got sick and couldn't control myself." She reached out to hold my hand, and I instinctively recoiled, but she suddenly bumped into me, and then, as if being thrown out, she fell heavily to the ground, scattering my medical records everywhere. "Claire!" Ryan shouted angrily as he crouched down to help Raina. "Raina just wanted to apologize, do you have to be so vicious?" Ryan questioned me angrily, as if I had committed a grave sin. "If you have any anger, direct it at me, her body is so weak, she can't withstand your forceful pushing." Raina's eyes were filled with tears as she raised her scraped hand. "It's okay, Ryan, as long as Claire feels better." Ryan looked at me with eyes like frozen blades. "Claire, when did you become so jealous? If that's the case, let's consider yesterday's incident even, and you shouldn't be so petty about it." Noticing the medical record on the ground, Ryan picked it up, and his expression suddenly turned strange. "Depression? What a coincidence." Raina weakly leaned against Ryan. "I have the same illness as Claire." Ryan's expression immediately turned cold. "Claire, you would even tell such a lie to bind me? I hate being deceived, and you just had to make up the same illness as Raina. It's really disgusting." He looked down at me from a height, saying that I shouldn't come back for now, as a punishment for you. I'm giving you a few days to think carefully about what should be done and what should not be touched. We are going to spend our lives together in the future, so don't always make me teach you how to be a person. After going through many moments like this, I have become numb and don't want to argue. Ryan, I believe Sister Claire didn't mean it, Raina said again with feigned sincerity. Snatching the medical form, I walked away without looking back, hearing about 70 to 80% of the conversation behind me. Ryan, it's fine if Sister Claire is not okay, don't worry about her. In a few days, she won't be able to help but cling to me again, just like that. For now, I'm staying at my best friend's house. Even if Ryan doesn't mention it, I had no intention of going back. But when I saw the video Raina posted online, I immediately rushed back. Raina posted a video rescuing a stray cat, trying to gain followers. The cat in the video, with its broken limbs, looks a lot like my beloved cat Jim. What are you doing here? It's as if you knew I wouldn't be able to resist coming back, Ryan said impatiently. Didn't I tell you to think it through before coming back? I ignored him and rushed into the house to find Jim, only to see Raina wearing a sheer white shirt, completely bare from the waist down. Claire, are you deaf or blind? Ryan said, gripping my wrist tightly. Can't you hear me or see me? I endured the pain and shook off his hand, searching again and again, but I couldn't find Jim. I was anxious. Ryan, where is Jim? Tears were welling up in my eyes. Ryan, feeling guilty, didn't dare to look me in the eye. Jim is a bit sick and is in the hospital. What illness? Which hospital? This sentence was directed at Raina. The latest video was clearly shot at home. I've already seen the video, you are still lying. I took out the video. Jim's belly, it was neutered and had no fur, exactly the same as the one in the video. What else is there to argue about now? As soon as Raina saw that the matter was about to be exposed, she started to cry. It's my fault, Jim was playing and ran out, I didn't keep an eye on him. When I found him, he was already on the brink of death from being abused. I was afraid Sister Claire would be sad, so I thought I would heal Jim and bring him back. Raina cried like a rain-soaked pear blossom. Cut the act. I interrupted her. The screen was just installed last week, how could he possibly have run out? Ryan quickly comforted me, saying Raina was already doing great, and impatiently rebutted my words. Jim, being playful, ran outside. After all, he is just a beast, living a life of luxury at home. He even scratched someone before. If it weren't for your excessive pampering, I would have wanted to teach him a lesson. Now, he has learned his lesson. In the past, Ryan didn't like Jim, and I thought it was just jealousy, but it turned out he simply lacked compassion. Thinking of quickly rescuing Jim, I held back my anger and didn't argue. Where is Jim now, anyway? Claire. What kind of attitude is that? Can't you even say thank you? My mom doesn't like cats, and that cat will eventually have to be sent away, so just don't worry about it. I didn't listen to their arguments anymore, calling out Jim's name over and over. Finally, in the corner of the fire escape, I found Jim curled up in a cage. Its right front paw was unnaturally bent, and when it saw me, it weakly meowed. Are you still human? My hands trembled as I picked up the cage. Ryan rushed out and blocked the elevator. My mom is coming tomorrow, we can't leave the cat at home. I shoved him hard, get out of the way. In the taxi to the hospital, Jim kept rubbing his head against my palm. The driver glanced at us through the rearview mirror several times. Miss, don't cry, we'll be at the hospital soon. Can you drive a little faster, please? I wiped my tears and felt Jim growing lighter in my arms, as if he were about to disappear. When I returned from the pet hospital holding Jim, it was already dark. The doctor said Jim's leg could be healed, but he needed to rest. He curled up in my arms, occasionally letting out a soft meow, as if expressing his grievances. Jim is not just a pet cat, he is my family. The inhumane treatment he suffered has strengthened my resolve to draw a line with Ryan. The next evening, I returned to the rental apartment once again. Ryan thought I had finally come to my senses and was ready to back down. He leaned against the sofa, his eyes glued to his phone. I replied coldly, I've thought it through, and walked straight to the wardrobe. Just then, he propped his leg up, saying, Raina hasn't fully recovered yet, so I had her move in for a few days to make it easier to take care of her. You should tidy up the guest room. I ignored him, pulled open the drawer, and began folding my clothes into the suitcase one by one. The floor needs to be mopped, he said as he leaned against the door frame. Don't rush to clean up, first, take out the kitchen trash. He lazily added, I knew it, Claire, you can't live without me. With a click, the suitcase closed, and Ryan's expression finally changed. What do you mean? Making space for the two of you. Ryan rubbed his forehead, thinking that I was just sulking, wondering why I was still jealous of Raina. I had already explained that she was sick and didn't mean to show up at the engagement scene. Why were you still being so aggressive? I'm not angry anymore. How could that be? Clearly, I'm still saying angry things. Raina is my sister, and naturally, she is also your sister. As a sister-in-law, you should be tolerant of your sister, and that was the point I admired most about you in the beginning. You should continue to uphold that. I told you, we have already broken up. Ryan was momentarily stunned. Are you serious? Of course. Ryan was taken aback for a moment and suddenly laughed. All right, I'll wait for you for a week this time. If it goes beyond that, don't come crying back to beg me. The reason Ryan swore so earnestly was that in every Cold War before, he always said I should be the one to speak first and admit my mistakes. He had long gotten used to my attempts to please him. I had packed everything up and was walking to the door when I suddenly remembered that there was one particularly important thing I hadn't found. As I pushed the door open, Ryan was sitting on the sofa playing a game, not even looking up, snorting coldly. Regretting it so soon? I knew it, but I swallowed the rest of the sentence. Where is my bracelet? I interrupted him directly, having just searched everywhere and not seen it. As I spoke, Raina came out of the bathroom, wearing the very bracelet that my grandmother had left for me. Raina, why are you wearing my bracelet? I grabbed her hand without hesitation and questioned her. Claire, you're hurting me, Raina recoiled. Ryan suddenly stood up and shouted, What are you doing? Let go. Then he coldly mocked, What are you, a country bumpkin? Using brute force again and again, didn't you hear Raina say her hand hurts? I stared at the bracelet. It was a keepsake from my grandmother. Ah! Raina suddenly screamed. Ryan rushed over and shoved me hard. I stumbled and fell onto the sofa, my lower back hitting painfully. With a sharp crack, the bracelet fell to the ground, breaking into 3 pieces. I'm sorry, Claire, Raina rubbed her wrist. Maybe the shower gel was too slippery. Ryan wrapped his arm around her shoulder. It's just a broken bracelet, is it necessary to be so forceful? Raina, is your hand okay? It hurts a bit, but it's fine. Raina leaned against him. I crouched down, trembling as I picked up the shards. This was the only thing my grandmother left me, and every time I thought of her, I would gently touch the bracelet, just like when she used to hold my hand when I was little. Slap. I raised my hand and gave Raina a slap, the sound silencing the entire room. Ryan was stunned for 2 seconds before reacting, raising his hand to hit me. Suddenly, a hand grabbed his wrist from behind. Who are you? Ryan struggled to turn his head. Julian stood in front of me and pushed hard, Stay away from her. Ryan took a few steps back before steadying himself, and Raina immediately rushed over. Ryan, my face hurts so much. When Julian bent down to pick me up, I took one last look at Ryan. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but was interrupted by Raina's cries. Let's go. Julian carried me out the door, and I tightly clutched the shards of the bracelets, tears finally streaming down my face. It was only in the car that I learned it was my best friend who had asked her brother to come pick me up in her place. After getting bandaged at the hospital, Julian brought me back downstairs and watched me go up before slowly driving away. For the next 3 days, I lay in bed like a shell of myself. My best friend took leave from work and made me porridge in various ways every day. I barely ate a little, and when she brought the spoon to my lips, was it just to give me face? On the morning of the fourth day, I looked at her heavy dark circles and finally spoke. You can go to work, I'm fine. Really? She squatted by the bed, staring into my eyes. You promise? I promise. I forced a smile. She walked away, turning back 3 times, and the sound of the door closing echoed in the empty room. I stood by the window, the sunlight piercing my eyes painfully. By the time I realized it, I was already standing at the edge of the rooftop, the ground below seeming like a whirlpool, deeply drawing me in. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was my best friend calling. I pressed the answer button and heard her voice, choked with tears. Claire, don't move. We're on our way. 20 minutes later, the rooftop was crowded with people. Julian stood closest to me, his shirt completely soaked through. Can you come down? He reached out his hand. I'll treat you to hot pot, right now. I crouched down and cried, realizing for the first time how seriously ill I was, and the firefighter took the opportunity to carry me down. That night, my photo spread online. The comments section exploded. Is this a stunt? If you really wanted to jump, you would have done it earlier. I heard it was because her fiancé ran away. Women like this are the most terrifying, forcing marriage to the point of death. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was Ryan's number. I hesitated but still answered. Claire, his voice was as cold as ice. Have you had enough fun? Breaking up first and then putting on this act, do you think I would soften my heart because of it? I didn't say anything, listening to him continue. The way you are now is really off-putting, completely different from the sensible and obedient person you used to be. I threw my phone onto the sofa and directly blocked him. Julian sent a message saying he was downstairs, asking if I wanted to go eat hot pot. I looked at my haggard self in the mirror and finally felt the urge to go out. To heal and to completely forget the past, I decided to burn everything related to Ryan, and Julian was very supportive. Come on, let's burn all of this. Julian handed me an iron basin. I squatted on the ground, throwing the scarf Ryan gave me, our photos, and my diary into the fire one by one. Just as the flames leaped up, Autumn happened to push the door open. That's great. She threw her arms around my shoulders and said, how about the 3 of us going on a trip next week? I've already planned everything. Early that morning, the 3 of us set off with our suitcases. Autumn was running ahead with her camera, while Julian was behind helping me carry my bag. At the zoo, when we were watching the giraffes, Autumn insisted on taking a group photo of me and Julian. My screams on the roller coaster had Autumn laughing so hard she nearly fell over. In the evening at the night market, Julian quietly moved the snacks I couldn't reach right in front of me. Claire, look at this. Autumn was holding a skewer in her left hand and nudging her phone towards me with her right, her greasy fingers sliding across the screen. I leaned in to take a look. The topic of a girl who had been in a relationship with her boyfriend for 5 years, suffering from depression due to PUA, was trending hot. Right below it was a heartwarming blogger using cat abuse for clicks, and the accompanying image was a screenshot from Raina's account. My God. I forgot to chew the sausage I was biting. The comments section completely shifted. Those who once criticized me for being melodramatic are now standing up for me. Hee hee, Autumn swayed her head proudly, with chili powder still on the corner of her mouth. I've been lurking in those hater groups for 3 months, just waiting for this day. She flipped to another page. Look, I even had my brother use his psychologist account to post a long article, clearly analyzing the tactics of PUA. I stared wide-eyed at Julian's article that had been shared over 100,000 times, with a picture of us from last week in the park. Jim was squatting on my shoulder, Julian's hand resting on my shoulder, and the sunlight stretched the shadows of the 3 of us long. The most satisfying part is this. Autumn suddenly slammed the table, startling the uncle at the next table. She clicked on a video, a clip from Raina's previous livestream where she let something slip. That cat, you really have to be tough with it to get it to listen. You actually found this? I was so surprised that I dropped the skewers onto the plate. Autumn winked at me. I've joined 20 pet groups, and I'm on the lookout every day. She raised her can of cola, and said, "Let's celebrate karma." Awesome. I clinked my glass with hers forcefully, and ice-cold cola splashed all over the table. Autumn nonchalantly wiped it with her sleeve and stuffed another skewer of meat into her mouth. "You can't bully me, but bullying my best friend? No way," she said, her words muffled by the meat. A gentle breeze brushed against us as the three of us strolled slowly along the riverbank. "Claire?" A familiar voice almost made me drop the candied hawthorn in my hand. Ryan stood 3 steps away, his hair a mess, with dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept well in a long time. Autumn immediately stood in front of me. "Ryan, why are you haunting me?" "I just want to talk to Claire for a few minutes." Ryan took a step forward, but Julian reached out to stop him. I patted their shoulders. "It's fine, you two go ahead and wait for me." Ryan's Adam's apple bobbed a few times. "Claire, I've seen the news online, and I've sent you a lot of messages these days, but you blocked me. Are you avoiding me?" "Ryan, I think I've made it clear, we broke up." I threw the candied hawthorn stick into the trash can. Ryan's expression darkened. "It was because of Raina, right?" Ryan suddenly grabbed my wrist. "There's a misunderstanding, I can explain now." He took a deep breath, as if he had made a certain resolution. "Actually, there is a reason why I am so good to Raina. 5 years ago, Raina's brother promised me that as long as I took good care of his sister, he would give me 1 million after 5 years. Now the time has come, and Alan has fulfilled his promise. The luxurious wedding I promised you can now be realized." As Ryan spoke, hope ignited in his eyes, filled with anticipation. "I don't need it anymore." A bucket of cold water was poured down, and the light in Ryan's eyes slowly dimmed. "Can you give me another chance?" "I misunderstood you. I believe you still love me, right?" "We have no possibility anymore, everything is over." "Claire," Ryan's voice carried a hint of tears. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. From now on, I will only be good to you. I truly understand my mistake." "Claire. Julian is calling me from not far away, I have to go back." I broke free from Ryan's hand. "It doesn't matter anymore." "Is it because of him?" Ryan pointed at Julian, his voice suddenly rising. "When did you?" "Let's go." I turned and grabbed Julian's sleeve. Ryan tried to catch up, but Autumn tripped him with her foot. "Claire. Give me another chance." His shout drew the attention of passers-by. Julian turned back and glared at him, casually taking the backpack from my hand. Autumn leaned in and linked her arm with mine, and the three of us walked side by side into the crowd, without looking back. That night when we returned to the guest house, Autumn suddenly pulled back the curtains. "My God, Ryan is downstairs." I walked to the window and saw Ryan kneeling straight under the streetlight. The night wind rustled the leaves, and he just knelt there, motionless. "Don't mind him," Julian pulled the curtains shut, "let him kneel there." The next morning, I heard Julian talking to Ryan downstairs. "I am Claire's psychologist, and her condition requires peace and quiet. If you really care about her, then stop disturbing her." Ryan seemed a bit incredulous. "Is she really sick?" After that, Ryan really never appeared again. One day, Julian excitedly came to find me with an invitation to an auction. "A friend said I could bring a piece of work to the event, do you want to give it a try?" He picked up the landscape painting I had casually drawn during my travels, saying it might earn a little profit. Tempted by the prospect of money, I nodded in agreement. Not long after taking my seat, I unexpectedly ran into Ryan again. Raina was elegantly linked to Ryan's arm as they entered, wearing a sequined gown, flaunting like a peacock in full display. Ryan, who had originally appeared indifferent, clearly froze the moment our eyes met. "Oh, has the threshold for the auction become this low?" Raina pinched her voice and glanced at me meaningfully. Ryan immediately frowned and shot her a glare. She pouted and fell silent, her eyes filled with disdain. I turned around, feeling Ryan's gaze still glued to my back, so hot it almost felt like it would burn a hole in my dress. Julian timely handed me a glass of champagne, his warm fingers lightly brushing against the back of my hand. "Don't mind them." I smiled and nodded. When the staff hung my painting journey on the display stand, my palms were sweaty with nervousness. The auction for item number 37, Journey, begins with a starting price of 5,000 yuan. The auctioneer's voice echoed in the venue. Someone with sharp eyes noticed my signature in the corner. Claire? Never heard of her? Is she a rising artist? Could she be a hidden big shot? I lowered my head, too embarrassed. What a terrible idea Julian had. Now any Tom, Dick, or Harry's painting can make it to the auction? Raina said in a high-pitched voice, fiddling with her newly done nails. The taste of the organizers is getting worse and worse. Julian suddenly stood up. The composition of this painting is very dynamic, and the use of color is quite unique. He revealed that he is the well-known artist, M.Y. A wave of whispers immediately erupted in the venue. The genius painter M.Y.? Mai's judgment must be infallible. Just as we were in the VIP seats, it perfectly corroborated Julian's words. Then someone started to raise the bid. 10,000, 20,000. Ryan raised his paddle. 30,000. 40,000. Julian immediately followed. 50,000. Ryan's tone was very calm. I gently tugged at Julian's sleeve. Don't bid any more. In the end, Ryan won the painting for 50,000. As soon as the paperwork was completed, he walked towards me holding the painting, and at that moment Julian was in the restroom, leaving me alone. Raina chased after him in high heels, clacking loudly. Claire, Ryan held up the painting, looking great. Raina grabbed Ryan's arm. Are you crazy? Spending 50,000 on this junk. She pointed at me and scolded sharply, you vixen. Even after breaking up, you're still trying to seduce someone else's boyfriend. Raina. Ryan shook off her hand. Pay attention to the occasion. Occasion? Raina suddenly laughed. Ryan, if it weren't for my brother investing in you, would you have today? Sitting here pretending to be wealthy? The more she spoke, the more agitated she became, using my brother's money and still thinking about your ex-girlfriend? Raina. Ryan shouted excitedly, the veins on his forehead clearly visible. I really regret agreeing to take care of you for your brother. If it weren't for you, Claire and I would already be a happy couple. Husband and wife? Ha ha ha. Raina laughed. In this lifetime, your wife can only be me. I regret it. I won't marry you, you despicable and vile woman. Ah, what are you saying? Shut up. Raina screamed like a madwoman. The security guard quickly walked over. Please, both of you, keep quiet. I'm going to speak. Raina hysterically pointed at Ryan, the ungrateful scumbag. You will always be tied to me, and pointing at me, shameless vixen. As the 4 security guards escorted them out, one of Raina's high heels fell to the ground, and her hair became disheveled. Ryan kept his head down and didn't look at me even once as he was taken away. After the last psychological consultation ended, Julian took off his glasses and wiped them. Congratulations, all assessments show that you have recovered. So, does that mean I don't have to come anymore? As doctors, our therapeutic relationship should come to an end. He paused, took out a paper bag from the drawer, but if you want, you can try the cookies I baked. The little bear cookies in the paper bag emitted a buttery aroma, just like the one I smelled in his kitchen when I was 12. My hand trembled slightly as I held the cookie. Does Julian still remember things from my childhood? Yes, he does. His ears turned red as he said, the day you said you wanted to be my girlfriend, I was baking these cookies. As I walked out of the hospital, the early summer sun was warm and bright. I opened the paper bag and found a note pressed under the cookies. See you at 7 tonight, same place. The old banyan tree in the backyard of the G family was even denser than when I was 12. Julian stood under the tree in a light blue shirt, holding 2 thermos containers. Milk oatmeal. He handed me one, just like before, with honey added. As I took the thermos, his fingertips brushed lightly against the back of my hand. What's in the other thermos? Open it and see. Lifting the lid, the sweet aroma of strawberry ice cream wafted over me. I scooped a spoonful, the cold melting on my tongue, just like the taste in my memories. Julian suddenly took my hand. now that you've grown up, do the words from back then still count? The ice cream slowly melted in the bucket as I looked at his gentle eyes behind the lenses. That depends on whether Julian is still willing to buy me ice cream every day. Julian, I called him softly, my heart racing. Bang! Colorful streamers suddenly fell from the sky, landing on our hair and shoulders. Autumn jumped out from the bushes holding a confetti cannon, her face still smeared with leaves. We finally waited for this day. Julian's glasses were covered in ribbons, and he helplessly took them off to wipe them. Autumn, how long have you been hiding? My legs are numb from squatting, what do you think? I noticed something was off with you guys early this morning. Congratulations to both of you. Autumn magically produced 3 cans of cola from somewhere, cheers. As the crisp sound of the pull tabs opening echoed, Julian quietly said in my ear, "It's not too late to back out now." I stood on my tiptoes and pressed the ribbons onto his hair again. Dream on, we promised a lifetime of ice cream, remember? On a weekend morning 3 months later, sunlight streamed through the curtains into the bedroom, and I was cuddling with Jim, reluctant to get out of bed. Suddenly, a rapid knocking at the door broke the tranquility. "Claire! Open the door quickly." Autumn's voice came from outside, accompanied by the sound of her stomping her feet. I rubbed my eyes and opened the door, and Autumn rushed in like a gust of wind, losing one of her slippers in the process. She was panting and shoved her phone in front of me. "Look at the news. Something big has happened." The local headline news prominently displayed on the phone screen: CEO Ryan and his girlfriend Raina were taken away by the police on suspicion of money laundering. In the accompanying image, Ryan is being escorted by 2 police officers in a disheveled suit, while Raina, with her hair in disarray, has smudged makeup from crying. "Look at this one." Autumn excitedly scrolled down the screen, and another photo popped up. In the picture, Raina is screaming hysterically at the police station entrance, completely devoid of her usual elegance. The sound of chopping vegetables came from the kitchen, and Julian walked out wearing an apron, holding half a peeled apple. "What's all the noise about?" "Brother! Look!" Autumn excitedly held her phone up in front of him. "Evil gets its due." Julian glanced at the news, then turned back to the kitchen to continue slicing apples. "Luckily, the money spent on the painting was clean." His voice floated out from the kitchen, calm as if discussing the weather today. I took the phone and carefully read the report. It turned out Raina's brother Alan had been involved in money laundering for a long time. Not only did Raina know about it, but she also assisted in transferring the illicit funds multiple times. Ryan used Alan's money to start a company, so he naturally got caught as well. Serves them right. Autumn angrily waved her fist, letting them bully Jim, letting them steal Claire's bracelet. Jim seemed to understand, jumping off the bed to rub against my leg. I bent down to pick it up and suddenly remembered the tragic state it was in when I found it that day in the hallway. Now, it is warm in my arms, its little paws resting on my arm, completely recovered. Julian came out holding a plate of sliced apples and forked a piece to my mouth. "Don't think about those people anymore. The weather is so nice today, how about taking Jim to the park this afternoon?" I took a bite of the apple, the sweet juice spreading in my mouth. The sun was shining brightly outside, and the birds in the trees were chirping away. Life had finally returned to the way it should be.